At Argentina Crime Files, every story confronts us with a justice that leaves more questions than answers. On July 29, 2000, a gunshot shattered the silence in his Palermo apartment. Outside, the city carried on, indifferent. Inside, a man who had given everything for his country reached his final act. No one saw, no one heard, but the echo of that shot lingers in history. A fallen body and a letter. A warning no one in power wanted to read. René Favaloro did not die. He was left to die. His death was not an individual act but the consequence of a system that crushes those who challenge it. A system that buries its heroes rather than granting them justice. Born in La Plata in 1923, René Favaloro was drawn to medicine from an early age. He graduated from the National University of La Plata and chose to practice in one of the country's most neglected regions, Jacinto Arraiz La Pampa. There he not only healed but educated and transformed an entire community. But his vocation knew no borders. In 1962, he joined the Cleveland Clinic and perfected the coronary bypass, a technique that continues to save millions of lives. He had everything, a prestigious career, stability, success. But he chose to return. He came back to a country that desperately needed him, only to be pushed into an abyss from which there was no return. Determined to transform Argentina's healthcare system, he founded the Favaloro Foundation in 1992, a center of excellence in medicine and education. But reality struck hard. Corruption controlled everything. Health insurance companies, unions, politicians, and business owners turned medicine into a business, trapping doctors and patients in a web of dark interests. He sought government funding under President Fernando de la Rúa but found only evasions. PAMI owed his foundation millions, yet payments never arrived. Horacio Rodriguez Larreta, in charge of the entity, prioritized private clinic contracts, while José Luis Machinilla and Héctor Lombardo, responsible for state funds, made empty promises. Hugo Moyano, wielding power within the unions, controlled social security funds with impunity, favoring those aligned with him. Money flowed into the same corrupt pockets, leaving the foundation in ruins. He searched everywhere for help, but doors remained closed, or they demanded favors that his integrity would not allow. In his final letters, he expressed his despair. "I am tired of fighting and fighting, rowing against the current in a country that is rotten to the core." Once a medical pioneer, he was now reduced to begging for what he was owed. Corruption was not an obstacle. It was the driving force of a system designed to crush those who refused to play along. On July 29, 2000, he locked himself in his apartment and wrote his final words. Not one but several letters. In one, addressed to authorities, he declared, "I have been defeated by this corrupt society that controls everything." PAMI owed him millions, banks shut their doors, and bureaucracy refused to help. From a revered doctor, he had become a man pleading for survival, while money poured into clinics owned by those in power. The message was clear. In Argentina, corruption has names and faces, and justice never reaches those who fight against it. That day, with a .38 caliber revolver, he ended his life. The hands that had saved thousands of hearts could no longer bear the weight of an unfair battle. On the floor beside him lay ignored letters, unanswered cries for help. Outside, bureaucracy moved forward, and the guilty slept soundly. In that instant, Argentina lost more than a man. It lost its last chance at redemption. His death was more than a personal tragedy. A warning ignored, a silenced cry, proof that in Argentina, integrity is a death sentence. He was not broken just by unpaid debts but by the certainty that corruption consumes even the most virtuous. Impunity pushed him to the edge, while those responsible continued weaving their networks of power, shielded by a nation too quick to forget, too eager to perpetuate its own condemnation. He never distinguished between rich and poor. He treated whoever needed him, regardless of their ability to pay. In one of his letters, he bitterly wrote, "Medicine cannot be a business, nor education an industry. In a world where values are inverted, ethics become a dangerous rarity." While others turned medicine into a business, he refused to profit from human well-being. But his principles did not fit in a country where healthcare had become a tool of power rather than a basic right. He fought until the very end to keep his foundation alive, treating patients regardless of their financial situation. He could have remained in the United States, enjoying prestige and stability, but he chose Argentina. From a medical hero, He became a beggar of politics, pleading for the funds that never arrived. His love for his country was stronger than the comfort he left behind, and yet, this is how he was repaid, with indifference and betrayal. His story proves that one can resist mediocrity, but it also shows that impunity always finds new victims. And now his story confronts us. Nothing has changed. Power structures remain intact, and silence prevails. Others have fallen, and others will continue to fall as long as impunity reigns. His legacy, which should have been a guiding light, was overshadowed by the very corruption that led him to his death. Let his memory force us to reflect, to speak his name, to share his story. Because as long as injustice prevails, his fight cannot be left in the past. Let's continue uncovering these stories on Argentina Crime Files, where remembering is the only way to seek justice. Because forgetting doesn't just erase memory, it paves the way for history to repeat itself.